Alrighty, y'all, I'm going to be teaching you how to burn 7018 1/8 rod. It's a low hydrogen rod, so if y'all can get this down, pretty much you can get down any structure welding job. So today, it's just a little test plate on my stand, 1/8 angle. I think it's like a 1x1. So first step is to clean out your area we're going to weld it. Property cleaning, so this right here needs to be cleaned. This little rust piece that'll cause lack of fusion, porosity, and whatnot. So what I'm going to do, start right here with 7018. This is the 1/8 rod, so it's a little bit thicker. Now everybody goes, oh, you can start off with 100 amps, 120 amps. Doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but it doesn't matter on what machine. You know, every machine's different. On my Amico 200 amp welder, I'd be running 125 amps. And on my Lincoln, I'm running 110 amps. So the amperage is different with every machine. You know, everybody thinks it's all the same, but it's not. See what else. Also, I forgot to add this in. So also, you're supposed to preheat your metal. For ASW1 D1 standards, I think it's like 110 degrees. So if it's hot outside and you got the sun on it, you meet the temperature of the base metal. But other than that, that's it. Let's get started. Back. I got my Stinger leather gloves on, long sleeve. Make sure your button's all buttoned up. Welding hood. For the shade of the lens, it's up to you guys. So you can go with shade 9 up to shade 12, around that range for stick. Works pretty good. And so, you know, it's all preference. And let's get started on this. All right. Okay, now when you start in on welding, you want to do a striking, like it's starting a match up like this, up and down. So you want to get right here, kind of lay it in there. You can go side to side if you want to on there. I don't think it matters very much. As long as you're hot enough to get this in and placing, you're keeping that rod sticked in there. You keep feeding the rod. We're going side by side. It looks pretty good with one of these. It may be a little too hot on this. The metal is really thin, this 1/8, so it heats up pretty quick. Now when I step off this, like I want to flip it like that. Okay, now we're ready for our second bead. You can show them the bead. It looks good right there. A little bit of a hiccup right there. That's where I moved it. You know, you're supposed to have it's all supposed to be very consistent when you're putting down these beads. Holds up a lot better. You know, if it doesn't pass a visual, it won't pass, you know, probably won't pass x-ray or a bend test. So now we're going to put our second bead right here. Right where this rod's at. And our third bead right there. And we're going to put one in the middle because we're going to have enough room by there. And make sure you wire wheel all that stuff out from the corners. You know, if you can't get it out, use an angle grinder and grind into it if a wire wheel can't get it. I'm not really a fan of the chisels. They work good on, you know, if you're burning like 532 rod or, you know, big rod and whatnot. They work pretty good for that. But for this 1/8, just use a wire wheel. It's a lot quicker, a lot more efficient, less you have to fuck around with it. So now we're going to put the second bead in. Let me get still same 7018 1/8. Again, how we do it, we're going to strike from the top and get in there. Just getting started with it. I'm going to change my angle. We're kind of starting a 1/8 from the top of the weld. and the heat's melting the metal around it, so we're getting good penetration. We're just letting it sit in there. Perfect. We're just trying to follow that first pass on the left side. We're just trying to get it between it and the base metal. Looking real good. Alright, looks like we're almost done the second pass. I'm going to pop off of it. So usually, what they'll have you do with test plates, they'll have a runoff tab. See how it's kind of cratering on the bottom here? And you get an undercut right there. So if this was an actual test plate, actual test, they'll have, well, they won't have you do an angle, obviously. They'll have you do plates, but it'll be a runoff tabs. That's what they're called. Okay, so again, if you guys are having a hard time striking the arc, it's better kind of moving up in rod size and amperage, so it'll be a little bit easier. So you start at the top, bam, now you're going. See that nice little bacon sizzle there? Kind of hitting the walls, breaking them down. You go to the wall, to the other weld, to the wall, to the other weld. Good, perfect. But so the slag sometimes will peel off. These are kind of older rods, and I'm not really watching my heat that much on this one. You know, I'm just teaching the basic on how to strike the arc and run a good bead. You know, right now we're going to wire wheel it all off, and I don't see any pinholes or anything really in there, so it looks good to me. Well, we'll cut into it. So I'm gonna clean this off, then we'll run our third pass. All right, so on here, do you guys see anything in there kind of concerning? I do. That little spatter piece. It may not be, you know, much of a problem, but I'm kind of perfectionist when it comes to, you know, doing, if it was a test, you know, you take a grinder, just brush that out there a little bit, because you want that causing you a lack of fusion or popping up on the x-ray. Just take extra precaution on there. So on the third pass, we're gonna put that sucker right there in the middle, and we'll go from there. Oh shit! Third pass right there. I'm gonna just get going at it. sucker is hot, hot, hot. So I'm sitting there messing with my amps. Sometimes it's better just to come off the material and stop putting heat into it, you know, instead of sitting there fighting with your amps and all that. Sometimes it's better just to let it cool down. Same thing with, you know, different alloys too, depending what you're doing though. But yeah, we'll take about a 5-minute break on this. We'll let it cool down. We're gonna get the knock off the flux and let the wind hit it. You don't want to wash it, or you don't want to put water on it, because carbon steel, it will just shatter. It causes microscopic cracks into the metal. So whenever people start pouring water on it, or, you know, getting a rag, put water on it and put it on there, don't do any of that shit. That's stupid. You're just gonna fuck up your project, and it's gonna cost you more money at the end of the day. So we're gonna take our time, take 5 minutes, let it cool down, and go from there. All right, so I was thinking about it during the 5 minutes. There's different ways on how to use welding rods too. So see how I bent the end of it like that? You can bend it, it'll move around a little bit differently. I personally don't most of the time, but I've seen people do that. It may help you, may not. I don't know, you're just gonna have to try it out. You won't know anything unless you start burning rod, you know? Because you can watch all these YouTube videos, you can watch all the, you know, all these influencers and everything like that, and not get a damn thing from it. You just have to go out there, burn some rod, you know, get in the real world, and figure out how it runs. You know, it's gonna run differently if it's out in the, you know, out in the wild, you know, windy, or if your material's shit, you know, if it's soaked in oil, but you should have grinded all that stuff off. You know, you just start from the bottom and get up, you know, on learning this stuff. You'll learn a lot from it. Learn, you know, listen to the old heads when you're talking to them. If they tell you an easy way of doing something, listen to that. Try it 3 times at least. If it's bullshit, you know, keep doing what you're doing. But, you know, listen to other people. You know, they ask you to do something different way, try it out. You know, you're just starting, you're green. You know, but you can kind of look at this, and that's how it should look. Very consistent. Looks like stacking dimes, right? Except for that part right there. That's whenever, you know, I didn't even clean that part. This is the start points right here. But that's what you call, right there, that's what you call porosity. Those little holes right there. That's it getting contaminated by the atmosphere. So right now it's cool. We're going to put another pass in. We're just going to put another one right in the middle. And we'll be right there. So you put the rod back in there, and then we'll get started at it. In the middle, good down, gloves on. We're going to kind of straight start it there. Kind of weave it, you know, make it be a little bit wider if you need to. You just want to touch both those welds and cover up that middle one. You want to burn this shit in good. Alright, we're almost done. Turn it off to the end. We'll kind of hold it there for a second and flicker off. There it is. I like it. Looks good to me.
Start over.
All right, guys. Got my hood off, gloves off. This is the outcome of what I've been trying to teach y'all. So you want to check over your weld, right? You make sure there's no little pinholes or nothing in there. There's no lack of fusion. There's no undercut. I mean, I think it looks pretty good to me. You know, you're gonna have the you know, whole internet looking at your weld, tell you if it looks like shit or not if you post it on there. So I highly advise don't post it on the internet.
Mine, I'm no expert. You know, I consider myself as a beginner. You know, I've been doing it for 5 years, but I'm a beginner. You know, you're always learning something. You know, like I said before, pay attention to the old heads when they're talking to you. You know, 100%. That's how you learn. And oh yeah, on this last pass here, I did bump it up to 130 amps when I'm going down with it because the metal cooled down and the slag just fucking popped off on it. So that's what it's called, slag flux. It's a flux. It protects your the material from getting contaminated from the atmosphere. Do a Google search on that. I'm not going to explain it anymore. So thanks for checking in. I run Mad Cow, like I said, I run Mad Cow Industrial Welding out here in Rockport, Texas. And starting a new YouTube channel, seeing how it goes. Just want to show people the basics of welding. Next week we'll do a vertical and then overhead. Overhead, I'm not going to be excited about that because I always get burnt whenever the flux drops on me. So we'll go from there. Thanks for tuning in.